what we're going to do now is we're going to put up some supports for our runner beans. So we're going to put 2 seeds per cane. We are going to grow some indoors as well, so we'll have a little experiment to see which ones are going to grow best. So we've incorporated plenty of organic matter. Normally the traditional way is to dig a trench about 18 inches to 2 foot wide, fork the base over, incorporate your manure, which is largely there for holding the moisture, because runner beans do like a lot of moisture. But you don't want fresh manure incorporated now, because you'll get lots of vegetative growth and then you won't have so many beans. So we've got some manure that was incorporated last year. I'm going to use the traditional bamboo cane. In fact, some of these are directly taken off some bamboo we're pruning back, some Phylostachys. And what we're doing is pushing them in. I'm just going to push them in. The canes are going to go in 18 inches apart, and what we'll do, just put a bit of an angle on them. You can go to 2 foot, a lot of people go to 2 foot, and we'll sort of go to about, you can see I've gone to about 6 foot height there, crossed them over. We're doing 18 inches because we haven't got a massive area, but certainly 2 foot is fine. Then we're going to go 6 inches between the row, okay? I'm just going to use a little bit of gaffer tape. That's just what I've got. You could use string just to tie these together. So whatever you've got, whether you've got string, whether you've got cable ties, just something just to hold them together, nice and simple. So I'm just going to come over here and put one in this end. So we'll push that one in there, and we'll pop that one in there, just cross them over a bit, and again we'll put a little bit of gaffer tape just to hold them together, and about the same height. That'll do. And now what I really want is a piece to go right the way across as the ridge. Okay, now if you haven't got it long enough, obviously you can put a couple together. You can see that if I put those together, they'll just about reach. Now I want to make sure that we don't want them poking out too much so they get anybody, but you want a good overlap obviously for strength. So again, a bit of string, or in my case we're just using a little bit of gaffer tape. So we'll just wrap that gaffer tape round. So I'll pop my ridge in place, and now I know where I can get to. Now I've got my ridge, I can put the other ones in at 6 inches apart. So that's what I'll do, 6 inches. And there we go, we'll put that. You can go a little bit further apart if you want to. So what we had to do is go to a 1 foot spacing in between the rows, which is okay, that's fine. Runner beans, and you can soak them if you want to the night before. You can see here's a little mark on the runner bean. That's where the epicotyle and the hypocotyle will come from. So the hypocotyle is what goes down, a bit like the radical, and the epicotyle will go up from this particular point here. So you can put them in sideways or however you want, they'll find the right way around. So what we're going to do is put 2 per cane, and in case one doesn't come through, then one will take over and wind their way around the cane. And we'll put one that side of the cane. There we are, and they're in. You look at the depth of the seed, and you want about twice the depth of it, okay? That's a good indication of most seed. It's size of the food store, the endosperm, which determines how deep you can put it. That's the fuel which is going to get it to the top before it puts on its true leaves. Okay, so what I'm doing, as you say, is just about twice the depth there. Pop them in. Now we're putting them in, we're just coming up to the end, what are we now, on the 25th of April. I don't want to put them in any earlier than that, because if they come up, they might get frosted, so that could be a problem. So by planting them now, it'll take a week to 2 weeks at least to come up, especially outdoors. I would suspect about 2 weeks. Then we're into May, and they're just starting to emerge, and then a couple more weeks and they'll be fine. We'll just have to keep an eye on them for the last 2 weeks of May, just in case we get a frost. And make sure they get a good watering in afterwards, which will get them a good start. Warmth, air and moisture are key to germination. Soaking in, where we just put them in there, get them off to a good start. Okay, and we'll just do, yeah, nearly actually. I'll just do a little bit of a roundup. Yeah. Excuse me. That's okay if you've got quite a big area, but of course, if you haven't got a big area, you might have to put them in a container, or you might have to put them in a raised bed or something like that. It doesn't matter. It works just as well. So we'll have a quick look at a container or raised bed, and what I've used in there is it's like an old bread basket, or it could be a couple of pieces of wood you put together and screw the corners together. And all I'm going to do here, I've got a little bit of manure, so I am going to put a little bit of manure on the top of there, not much. Could be a bit of homemade garden compost, so we'll just put that on. I'm going to whisk that in, and again, this is just to hold the moisture. Okay, so when we put the beans in, this will hold the moisture. We'll get some canes. We'll just get 4 canes, and we'll just do a wigwam. So just push that through to the bottom, and then another one, and that one there. Just pop that together. It's under there, and then of course we can tie that off. And I'm going to do some in these cells, so these modular cells. That's quite a reasonable way of growing them. I'm not going to get them too big before planting out, because by the end of May we'll be able to put them out, so they're really going to germinate. Just have a couple of weeks in the trays, and then I'm going to get them out. But the traditional way is definitely using something like a 1 litre pot. The advantages of having them in cells or pots, if you grow them in a tray like this, obviously when you come to knock them out, you're going to have to break the roots apart, and there will be some damage. They often say about 30% you can lose in root hairs and that. So it actually is better to grow them in these containers, but you can do them that way. They still grow alright, but just they'll have a little bit of a check before they start to grow properly. So having done that, we'll again, same again. Now remember that with the runner bean, you have this little bit in the middle, the kidney bit if you like, that's the hilum. That's where the new shoot and root come from. So most people would put them in horizontal, but they find their own way in the end anyway, so it's not essential. And so all I'm going to do is literally push that in. I'm going to put mine in flat. If you want to do an experiment, of course, nothing to stop you. Put 1 lot in flat and 1 lot turn to one way or the other. So flat is the normal way of doing these, and about 2 to 3 times the depth of the seed. So we'll just push them in. And with these, again, to get them to germinate quickly, about 21 degrees Celsius, but you'll find outside the ground probably about 10 degrees Celsius now. Probably just take a little bit longer, maybe a couple of weeks, as opposed to in a propagator by about a week you'd expect to see some growth. So I'm going to pop these in the propagator, and then we'll compare them to the ones we sowed a couple of days ago outside. That's that one. So we'll just pop that, cover up, and then once again pop a label in, run a bean, put the cultivar in, whether it's Moonlight or whatever, a Scarlet Emperor, what you can just pop that in with the date, and that's another tray ready to go. I'm going to do a few squashes first. Actually, it's your cheeky curry. It's one I'd like to do this year, which is supposed to be quite a nice squash, and then I'm going to sow. We're going to sow some runner beans in these. However, we could do them in sort of 1 litre pots, which is a good way of growing runner beans in these or there. So there's a big advantage of that, as we'll have a look at in a minute. So what I'm going to do, just fill up the trays, not firming too hard here, just sort of pressing in a little bit, but not too much, but making sure there's no air pockets. Compost should be just about moist enough to hold in your hand, and then you touch it and it breaks up. A little bit more there. And then with this a cheeky curry seed, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to individually sow them. So we'll just push one in, again about twice the depth of the seed, squash them in. Okay. Now, because they're squashes, they will require at least 21 degrees Celsius really to get them going. These are the sort of things that are more of a bit like a cucumber really, or an aubergine. You don't want to put them out too early or in the garden, because they could get frosted. So I'm just going to spread a little bit more compost on there. I've got a label of cheeky curry squash, put the date on the back, put it in there, and then that's ready to be watered, and that tray will be done.